Hello developers, in this video we are going to build a to-do app with Flutter and ChatGPT, and in the complete process we will learn how good is ChatGPT in terms of producing Flutter code and how to use code produced by ChatGPT wisely and pros and cons of using ChatGPT for Flutter development, and finally we will discuss about will it replace real Flutter developers or not. So let's get started. So first, as you can see, I'm running this simple Flutter application that is just a material app, and inside the home there is a scaffold, nothing else, just a blank scaffold. So now I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me the code for To-Do app. So just write code for To-Do app in Flutter. So this was the simplest prompt that I had given to this ChatGPT. Even if you want to get customized code, like what will be the configuration, how stylish you want to add a task button, so the more description you will provide in the prompt, the more customized result you will get. Okay, so now let's discuss the first point, that is how good is ChatGPT in terms of producing Flutter code. So as we can now see, we have given this simple prompt and we got the complete code for the To-Do app, but will it work as it is? Let's see. So I'm going to copy this code, and because it starts with the main, so I'm going to replace everything in this file. Okay, so I pasted it and it seems there is no error. So thumbs up. I mean, at least there is no error. There are warnings, but in terms of error, there is no error. So it might be like in few of the cases, or if I will regenerate the response, I might get some error in some of the lines, but this time we got the perfect code. So let's restart it and see like how it looks in UI. So don't expect too much. So it was just a basic to-do list code. So as you can see on the app bar, it's written to-do list, and here we have a button to add the to-do list. So how good is ChatGPT in terms of producing Flutter code? So as we can see, we have the complete code that is working. I mean, we haven't tested the functionality, but in terms of UI, in terms of like compile time error, there is no error, but there are few warnings. So what are those warnings? Like adding a const and some other warning like we are not using the constructors. So these kind of errors we are getting. So why is that? Because old data set on which this ChatGPT is trained on, basically it is trained on the data set till 2021. So that's why like these const and other features that are newly added to Flutter, so those things we need to handle by ourselves. So now let's test the functionality of this code, like will it work? So let's try to add it to task 1, add. So as you see, we got error. So this is the point that we were discussing, like how good is ChatGPT. So as you see, like when running the code, like from the UI wise it was working, but when it comes to functionality, it's not working. Seems like there is an error on line number 58. So it's getting like null is not as a type of string. So basically here it is given as string new task is equal to await show dialog, but there is nothing that is returned from this dialog. So that's why we are getting error. So instead of like, so here comes the second point. So how wisely we are going to use ChatGPT. So let's suppose you got this error and you're going to completely remove this app and write from scratch. No, that will not save your time. So we have to use ChatGPT and we have to use our skill as well. So that will be called a wise use of ChatGPT. So this error is not working. So now you need to debug it, like why it is not working. So we got this error like this, and you have to understand this can be the cause of error. So instead of assigning it directly in this variable, we can just show the dialog, and in the dialog we can add this and add task. We can use this add task function. So remove it from here. So you should be knowing these things. Like if you're not familiar with Flutter and you think like you will make a apps with Flutter with using ChatGPT, then that is not the case. So at least you should know the basics, like how Flutter application works. So now we need to call this add task function here. This is the text field that we are getting. So here we need to set something on change, and on change we will create a new variable here. Let's say string input is equal to empty as of now. So, and here on changed, we need to set state user input is equal to v. So now we are storing this value, and now we can use that value user input. And now if we will try it, it will work. So let's try now. Task 1 add, as you can see it is working now. Let's try to add a new task. Task 2, yes, you can see it's working. So now let's test the expectation, like if I will click on this task 1, it is not being checked, or the state is not being changed, but I want a option to identify that this task is done, but that is not the case. Also let's test the delete button. So delete button seems working. Let's add one more task. Okay, so now one functionality is missing, like the identification of the checked task. So go on ChatGPT, just tell it. It seems it is not working. It is not having option to identify completed tasks and uncompleted tasks. I want that feature as well. So tell your requirement, and once you will tell it, it will go through the complete code. It will regenerate everything. Okay, so now we got the updated code, and here we have two choices. First, either just copy the entire code and paste it, but in that case we will lose our change. That is basically for this floating action button here, like input, we have created a separate input for this. That will not work again. And second option would be like to understand this code, like what is the difference, what are the new things that is created. So I'm going with second approach. So just copy whatever is new given here. So let's suppose it had created a new class for the task, and here now it is the list of tasks, task instead of list of string, and add task. We need to update this function as well. And now we have this new function called toggle task completion, and update this remove task as well. So just I'm going to copy and replace with it updated. And now here inside the list view.builder, previously it was like this. Now I'm going to copy and paste the entire list. Okay, so this is the complete list view.builder. I hope there is no missing bracket. Yes. So now let's test the same functionality again. So I'm going to click add task, task 1, and as you can see now we have that checkbox, task 2, and now we have this option to check or uncheck a task. So that thing is also done. And let's suppose you want this checkbox to be green, right? It doesn't look good to me if it is the gray color. So for doing that, like you have two choices: or you go on this place, and once it is checked, just change the color, or just write ChatGPT to make the checked box color green. But the second approach is not good, because if you will go here and write like make the checked box color green, then it will again produce the entire code. Not entire, but most of the code you can see it is producing again. But instead of it, you can easily go on the checked state of this checkbox. So in this trailing, you can see this icon. If it is completed, then checkbox, else it is checkbox outline. So here give a color based on that condition, color. And if task index is completed, then give it color start green, otherwise don't give any color. So now see how simple was it. Just check it, uncheck it, now we are getting this green color. So that's like, we need to understand like what you need to write from yourself and what you need to take from ChatGPT. So let's suppose now I want to store these tasks in the local storage. So that will be a lot of changes. So for that you can ask ChatGPT. So for example, ask it, I want to store these created tasks, store tasks with proper state in local storage. So then it will again tell you all of the things, like it is using, we're going to use shared preferences, you can add that dependency, and then you can just copy paste the code like it is given here. And by using, like by reading all these steps, you can easily understand like how to use shared preferences to store and retrieve tasks from the local storage. So yeah, you can also see for saving the tasks. So these kind of things will be very helpful. But like for changing the color, you can like do it in just simple steps. So for that, I would not recommend to go on ChatGPT and write your prompt to get that feature. So similar to that, like earlier we were not getting this checked feature, so we implemented that. So similarly, if you want to sort the tasks based on the checked or unchecked manner, then you can ask your prompt like, I need to sort based on this and that. Then you will get some code, you have to understand that code, like how to use that, and you can similarly proceed. Now let's discuss the pros and cons. So first let's talk about the pros. So there are many pros, like you can save lots of time, like if you don't know how to use shared preferences and store tasks in the local storage, then you can just go through it, ask in detail like what these functions do. Let's suppose you don't know about load task, what is this doing? So just copy the complete function, or without copying, I mean you can just say like this, explain load task function. So it will give you the complete overview, like step by step, like line by line. So first line, what is doing, it is retrieving the instances. What the second next line is doing, what the set stage is doing, whatever task is being performed here. So if you want to learn, you have to be curious and you have to be open to ask prompts. Even though like if you don't ask this thing, you can use the code, but that will not increase your knowledge. That will be just a copy paste thing from ChatGPT. But if there is something new that you are interested in, make sure to ask it like this. So again, I think we are discussing the pros and cons. So first pros, as we discussed, we get the feature, like we get the complete code, so we can save a lot of time. And talking about next pros that we see, like we implemented this check uncheck feature. So there are similarly many things that you can do with the help of like ChatGPT. Like we can ask to store in the local storage, you can ask to store using the SQL database, you can ask to make more beautiful UI. So like you can give it any prompt and you will get the code for that. So this is also kind of advantage. So now let's talk about the cons. So there are also many cons. First, it will not increase your knowledge if you will just copy and paste the code. So for example, I explained you can give it prompt to store the tasks in local storage, but if you will not ask it again like how some piece of code is working, then you will not get the concept. Like in future, if you have to again store some task in your local storage, then you will again take some help from online resources. You cannot implement yourself those things. So that is kind of cons, like you become dependent, like each time you need to implement, you ask. And another cons is like you don't get up-to-date code, like because of the limited data set, it might get improved in future, but right now we don't get up-to-date code. And the third cons is like there are some features, some functionality that is not as expected or that is not working. Like in this add task feature we saw, this add button was not working, so we have to understand that. So these were the cons of using ChatGPT for your Flutter development. And now the final question, will it replace developers? So I would say never. It will not completely replace Flutter developers or any of the developers, because as we saw, we need to change something, we need to debug it, we need to like make it based on our requirement. So let's say if I am giving a developer that don't know this code, then he will not be able to even make this simple to-do app with ChatGPT, because it will not give the perfect code that will just copy paste and run and it will work. You need to know Flutter, you need to debug it, you need to clarify your requirements, you need to understand what you need and what you don't need. It will reduce the jobs of Flutter, you can say. Like if previously for developing a Flutter app there was a requirement of 10 people, then that might be completed with the help of only 3 or 4 people. But we cannot say that if previously a project was required 10 developers, but with the help of ChatGPT they can do it without developers. That's not the case. They need at least one developer or two developers for the complete flow, for working, debugging and everything. So that is the case. It will impact definitely, but it will not replace. So that was my complete overview about ChatGPT on Flutter. I hope it was a helpful conversation for you, and if you found it interesting, make sure to like and subscribe.